So it was tough because it was the first time that I had experienced a group of people who were maybe hostile to faith in general. So it was kind of tough to navigate the waters of trying to be a faithful Catholic amongst people who thought I was crazy for being Catholic, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got very close with Father Brian Barr, who was the chaplain there. And we went on a service trip to Kentucky, and that was kind of the thing that like changed everything, where I realized like okay, not only is what I believe true, but there are other people who believe what I believe, and I wasn't alone basically.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, priesthood was in the back of my mind, and Father Brian encouraged me a lot, but I wasn't ready to do it. Like I said, I had studied film, so I really wanted to pursue that. And after I graduated college, the campus ministers at Adelphi, I was very close to a lot of them, and I admired them a lot. And when that job opened, because this was the first time that all of them in both campuses, because Hofstra and Adelphi always worked together, so all of them left to pursue other things. So it was wide open. So I applied and I got the job, and I figured it would be good to be able to work there, and I could still study film, or still pursue that in my free time, because you have winter break, you have summer break, you have these built-in times where you don't have homework anymore. So that's like
Yeah, you just work. You're on
right.
campus, but
Right.
yeah.
So I started to realize that I liked doing the ministry stuff more than I liked doing the film stuff. And one of the students that went there, who I had known before I got the job because we were on a mission trip in Jamaica together, she kind of told me like she thought I really should be a priest. And it was like one of the last things that I needed, because I was, at that point, I was hearing it from different people, and I realized the only way I was going to know what I was supposed to do was to take the next step and enter the seminary, which is what I did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So you said you went to Jamaica on a mission trip.
Yeah.
Did you go to Kingston, Jamaica?
We were in Montego Bay. We worked with a company called Mustard Seed. It's based in the United States, and they have locations in different parts around the world. And in Jamaica, the way it worked, it was for children who, most of them had some sort of disability, whether it was mental or physical. And as a result of that, they were abandoned or orphaned.
Mm-hmm.
And so this company kind of, sets up places where they're taken care of and they're not left in the street to die or anything like that. So we went there we were with the kids a little bit, but a lot of what we did was like, painting and working on some of the buildings that, so that they could house more people.
Mm-hmm.
It was tough, but it was a great experience. That was my senior year of college.
Oh, awesome. I just thought of our parish at St. Catherine of Siena. They also organize a trip to they go to Kingston, Jamaica, and help the I think they're the not the missionaries for the poor. I believe it might be the missionaries for the poor, and it's brothers, and they also the same thing. They care for people that have mental disabilities and different things, and they care for them, and they also have like a music ministry going. So maybe one day I'll do a mission trip overseas or internationally, or maybe start local and then build up. What do you think?
I agree with you. Start local. Yeah,
because that's a little rough.
Yeah,
probably jump into.
I mean, it's possible, but there are different places within the country that you can go to and just get a sense of how to serve and how these things kind of go, and then kind of take it from there.
Mm-hmm. Right. Awesome. So what does being a priest mean to you? Or now that you've been a priest for 2 years, do you have any like things that you have in mind that come up as blessings, or just what were some challenges, I guess, to pursuing being a priest? I guess in the beginning, and then now some blessings.
I mean, before I entered, probably the biggest challenge is what are other people gonna think, and then just fears of like that you're missing out on something, or that you're gonna lose something,
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, all those things are fears and worries that ultimately don't matter, because if we're doing what God wants us to do, then really we don't have to worry about what anyone else thinks or anyone else says. And then once you kind of get into the seminary and you get used to being a seminarian, the difficulties are just like you live in a fishbowl, so a lot of things become bigger than they necessarily need to be, like finals and like that kind of stuff. Like you're with all these people and you're living with all these people who are stressed out, and it's just like, so that kind of stuff, like the schoolwork.
So you become stressed too.
Yeah, and then if you have a lot of work to do, there's the stress of that kind of stuff, and then just it's just that kind of, you're in a big community which has its pros and cons, and but just like studying, it's a lot at once, because there's a lot to learn. There's 2,000 years of history and tradition that you have to learn. So that was tough to a certain extent. I don't like school. I like to learn, but I don't like having to write papers or take tests or stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think that's most people.
And you had to write big papers, I'm sure, too, for masters.
Yeah. For my master's in theology, it was a minimum of 50 pages, and I wrote about John Paul II's The Splendor of Truth, his encyclical, and then how it could be taught through using media, and I specifically used the show Breaking Bad as an example of how the truths in his encyclical can be seen in a secular television show. So you can use different things to kind of teach the faith. So that was actually, I didn't have fun writing that, but that was the most fun I ever had, writing a paper. And whenever I was getting tired of writing, I could always watch an episode of the show and just say while I'm doing research.
Oh, awesome. Maybe you could also talk a little bit about that if you want, as we go along in the show. That's really interesting. That's really cool.
I mean, basically, like Veritate Splendor, the Splendor of Truth, it's John Paul II's document on moral theology. So the main point is, the main point that I drew from is the idea that there are certain actions in and of themselves that can never be ordered to the good. So he would call them intrinsically evil. Like you couldn't do something bad for a good reason. No matter what your intention is, that certain actions can never ever be good.
Mm-hmm.
So in the show, have you seen the show or heard of the show? Okay.
No.
It's a little bit rough. It's about a chemistry teacher who finds out that he has inoperable lung cancer, and he starts making and selling crystal meth to make enough money to give to his family for when he dies, so that they could be taken care of.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And you see how he starts off this journey doing something bad for good reasons,
mm-hmm.
as a good person, and then slowly throughout the series, he's doing it easier and easier for him to do bad things and justify them, and he slowly starts becoming a bad person.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be the idea that John Paul II would talk about, that our actions kind of create who we are to a certain extent. So if we form good habits and do good things, we become better people. If we do bad things, even if they are for good reasons, it's going to affect who we are and make us bad. And then it's easier to do worse things from there. So habits and those kind of things. So that was the basic gist of what I wrote about.
That's pretty awesome. It's like deep, but not really. It's like very relatable, you know. And I just thought of, I know you went to the World Youth Day this past summer because I saw you, I saw you there with my parish and stuff, and it was really cool being able to go to his birthplace and
Yeah.
just kind of to go and where his relics were,
Right.
and that brought a whole new dimension. I'm sure brought him to life for you.
Yeah.
You just finished your paper and stuff. That was really cool.
Yeah, and it was nice to see where he was baptized and all that kind of, like the actual baptismal font where he was like made a Christian. So uh, it was something else to kind of walk in his footsteps, because he died when I was a senior in college. So most of my life, the greatness of John Paul II, as far as like the things that everyone talks about, a lot of those things were in the past by the time that I was born. So I didn't really get to see those things firsthand.
Mm-hmm.
And then writing that paper, I got to, when you read somebody's writing, you feel like you start to get to know them.
Mm-hmm.
So the more and then as a saint, he's someone you can, ask for the intercession, and then, you get close to him that way too. So you feel like you know him in that sense. And then being able to walk in his footsteps and see all of those things, it just made it a little bit more real.
Right.
So that I thought that was nice. I mean, it was amazing. It wasn't just nice. It was
amazing.
It was amazing. Yeah.
Was that your first time going to Poland?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was mine too, and it's really cool, like actually being there. So these were the sites that he would have seen, and like we're from New York, so it's like, when are we ever gonna go to Poland? I mean, who knows? God has plans, but that's a really cool experience to be able to go somewhere new and have that spiritual side too, because it's not just sightseeing. We're also growing in our faith and getting closer to the saints and the people that we go on the pilgrimage with. So
yeah,
that's really fun too.
Yeah. And I wasn't a chaperone, so that made it even better.
Yeah.
I was a guest.
Yeah. You were able to enjoy it yourself. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I had to watch out for the group that we were with, but I wasn't specifically
assigned to people.
So that was like, I probably did the work of a chaperone, but I didn't have to make any decisions, so that was good.
Yeah. Yeah, it was funny. We were actually talking about that at the dinner table last night, me and my dad and my mom, because my dad was the chaperone. Well, twice he was a chaperone on 2 World Youth Days, and it's definitely a different experience, I'm sure you gain, but you just always have that little thing in the back of your mind. Oh, I gotta watch these kids or whatever. So, all right, that's really awesome. Thank you. So, another just question I had was, how is it being the chaplain of Stony Brook? And just what are some blessings and what do you like about it? Any challenges that you? No, I don't know, but
I love being there, and I feel like I completed the circle in a certain. I was a student involved in campus ministry, then I was a campus minister, and then now I'm a chaplain. So I kind of like went full circle, and it's great because I mean, I love working with the students there, because it's just, I find that like college age is a very formative time. And to be able to walk with them and journey with them is a great experience. And it's just, one of the things that's funny is not being ordained that long and not having lived on this earth that long. There are certain things that like are relevant to me, things that I grew up with that some of the students know about and grew up with too. Whereas in the parish, maybe people who were older wouldn't know about those things. So, and then it's funny because I'll say something and no one will know what I'm talking about, and I'll realize that was much older than them, and then it makes me feel old. Because I have to remember I'm 10 years older than a lot of them, or about 10 years older. So I might make a reference to something that I watched as a kid that they never experienced, because it was gone before they were old enough to, you know, to know what it was. Yeah. So that's always funny too. And I think one of the biggest challenges there is just that it's basically a missionary territory. And how do you, you know, it's important that we work with the people that are with us and that come. But, you know, Pope Francis talks a lot about going out on the margins and finding the people who maybe aren't coming and aren't involved. And so it's hard because being in two places, St. Patrick's and at Stony Brook, my job more is to work with the people who are already there and encourage them to get more people. So I can't necessarily go out and get other people. So it's tough in that sense, because it's like the people that you want to reach are how do we get to them? Right. And the same thing is true in the parish. The demands of the parish, there's a lot of things going on for the people who are there. So how do we get the people who aren't coming? How do we give them the gospel? How do we get the message out to them? So I guess that's always one of the things that's difficult.
I think just what came to mind was like just being yourself and just like inspiring others, like the kids. And I mean, for me personally, I really did enjoy when I was there for a short amount of time, because I graduated shortly after you started. I really liked how you interacted with us and just, you know, had fun, made jokes, and like you were somebody we could relate to because of the age, and also because, yeah, you're just like how you were. So I think that like you inspire the people that are already there, and then they in turn, it'll just come naturally out to all the others that who aren't there, and then it'll spread from there. And I guess we don't know. I guess we don't know who we're touching, even if we want to really change this person, but then we're changing somebody else, but they never tell you. So maybe it's just by our actions, and maybe just because sometimes I think also too about the radio show. Oh, I wonder who's listening or who it's touching. Maybe we'll never know. Maybe we just have to know, okay, we're doing God's will. This is a good thing. Let's just continue, you know. This is what God makes you happy doing it, because we're doing his will.
Right.
And just continue.
And I think that's living in the freedom of God's love, right? He gives us what we need, and then we work with that. And then the people that he puts in our place are the people that we're meant to work with. So I can't worry about the 20 people who aren't coming. Then I'm going to forget about the people who are there.
Coming.
Mm-hmm. And my job is to work with the people who are there. Mm-hmm. I mean, in a sense, worry about the people who aren't coming because I want to help them too. But I can't disregard the people that I have, in front of me. In front of you,
yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that just made me think of, so Father would come one time a week to Stony Brook. You would have office hours.
Mm-hmm.
Was it a Tuesday? I think Tuesday or Tuesday night from like 6 to 9. And, Colin? Okay, great. All right, so I guess we'll take the call. Hopefully, let me see if I could put my friend said too that she wants to call in as well. So maybe